Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Give me some real paranormal. Hey/X/. I'm so sick of seeing these "how do I summon a succubus" and Luminati trying to take Ma Freedom's threads. Let's do what /X/ is actually for. Freak each other out and ignite curiosity in locations and subjects that aren't posted 100 times a day.
So, little backstory, I have a job. Live with my father alone, 1 bathroom and 2 bedrooms. That's all that's needed. I was getting ready for work at about noon, and our bathroom is one of those where the fan automatically turns on when you flip the light switch. It's not separate or able to be turned off unless the light is off. It makes people outside of the bathroom hard to hear. As I'm getting ready, I hear my father call out my name. Anon. Yeah. I got no response, and I wasn't about to drop everything and just go out there. My hands were full. So I kept getting ready and dressed and hear him again down the hallway. Anon. What? Hurry. Okay, I'm almost done. I finished up, left the bathroom, and called from the hallway. Okay, it's all yours. Again, no response. I figured my dad hadn't heard me, so I walked down the hall and around the house, but he wasn't inside. His truck wasn't outside either. The alarm hadn't been tinkered with or turned off, nothing. I called him then, asking if he'd been at home, and he said he was still at work. My dad is a very stoic person, kinda mean, very serious. He'd never pull a prank like that. He doesn't really appreciate jokes. Basically, I said hell nope and left for work early because spook.jpg. I have plenty of other stories like this if anyone would like to hear. It's not that uncommon. I'll go ahead and share another. Back when my father and I had first moved into this house, we had set up that alarm I mentioned in the previous story, as well as a camera that faces the door away from the kitchen. My dad has the setup all in his bedroom, so he can look on the tablet at the camera's live feed, ECT. One day he called me from my bedroom to go see him, and as I walked over, he was watching the camera tablet and told me, "Anon, go stand in front of the door." Since I figured he just wanted to test if the live feed was working, I went along and did it. He called out for me to wait there, so I did. But something felt off, like just really uncomfortable. It was very sudden and harsh, and it's not like I felt chills or cold or anything, just upset and antsy. Before long, I could hear my dad laughing, so I walked into his room and asked what was the matter. "Come look at the screen." When I did, I could see the door, and what looked like the dark shape of a man pacing back and forth from the front door to the window, side to side, back and forth. It wasn't incredibly strong looking like visible. It was just like a light shadow, and going back and forth for a few times before just disappearing. It was walking right through you, Anon. And my dad just kept laughing about it. I felt super creeped out by that, didn't really appreciate it or understand, and just walked out of the room not really knowing how to feel about that. It was odd behavior from my dad. I stayed feeling uncomfortable and twitchy till the next day.
Something spooky that happened to me a while back. Be 18 right out of high school. Living in a 2-bedroom apartment with my mom and my sister. My mom just got divorced. It is sometime right after Halloween. My little sister went down to Waverly Hills Sanatorium for Halloween. Weird stuff starts to happen that did not usually happen before afterwards. Stuff being placed in odd places, stuff falling, etc. One night, I wake up to my hedgehog loose in my room making a huffing sound. It is around 3:06 in the morning. I get up and put it back in its cage in the living room. Its cage was lifted up in a way where it could not have gotten out on its own. I go back to sleep only to be awakened by the same noise that my hedgehog made earlier. It is a laughing sound as if you were breathing out of your nose. I peek up to the right side of my bed. There is a figure of a man on the side of my bed. I am creeped out. I keep waking up at 3:06 every morning afterwards. Eventually, we moved out at the end of November.
Too spooky for you Greentext story, right here. Sounds like it's straight out of a movie. But I'm telling you that this really happened to me. Be me, 13 years old. Have a 4-year-old little sadist, not Satanist, for a brother. Looking after him play with his little kid toys when mom and dad are cooking dinner. Gotta use the bathroom real quick. While enjoying my piss, I hear Lil Bro's door slam shut really loud. Damn, that was loud. .jpg. Finish pissing, walk to Lil Bro's room. Obviously the door was shut, but I could hear him moving around inside. Open door. I asked him, "Hey Lil Bro, why did you close the door?" He does not answer, just stares at me and then his bed. "What is wrong, Lil Bro?" I hear the door creaking behind me. Little Bro says, "He says to go away." What the fuck? .jpg. I thought he was just being a little kid, so I asked him, "Who said that, Lil Bro?" He points to the closet. The door slams shut behind me. "Now he wants you to play with us, Anon." "Who?" "Behind you, silly." I look behind me, nothing there. That is when I realize what is going on. Nope.gif. I rush out of the room and tell mom and dad what happened. "Oh, relax, Anon. You know your Lil Bro has an imaginary friend. He is just 4.
Alright, to preface this whole series of posts, which can and probably will be long. The 4-year period of time that all this primarily occurred in is somewhat of a blur to me, due to the overall effects of all the things that were happening. The earliest strange happening that I can remember and that may have kicked everything off is the time that I died. I'm not 100% sure what actually happened to me, but I was sitting alone in my mother's living room with no one else in the house. I don't know how long I was sitting still for, but it seemed like hours. The first thing I noticed was the sudden onset of what I would call time dilation. Whether this was real or just some sort of hallucination is not known to me at this time. Everything was moving much slower than it would have been otherwise. I could see dust particles in the air moving about in slow motion, and I could actually see the individual beats of a fly's wings. At first this was pretty cool, but after a few moments I began to feel an intense burning pain throughout my body, and I became paralyzed. I was able to move my eyes and blink very slowly, but other than that, I was completely frozen. After this had gone on for a bit, the pain spread into the area behind my eyes and was a pulsating, thumping pain. I also became acutely aware of everything touching my skin, down to the fibers in my shirt. What bothered me most was that I could not feel or hear my heartbeat as I normally could. Eventually, the burning stopped and transitioned into extreme cold, causing me to shiver violently. The thumping in my head turned into a stabbing pulse that absolutely would not stop. I sat there for a while wondering what was happening, and I was eventually becoming overwhelmingly tired. I decided to give in to the mental exhaustion and figured that if I died, at least it wasn't burning to death. I have a fear of burning to death. I woke up later that night, after having a series of nightmares that all involved me being eviscerated in a wide variety of ways. I also noticed that I no longer had the migraine-like pains anymore, but I was still freezing cold. That was the first major occurrence that I can remember, and if I'm not mistaken, it led to my next few years being really, really shitty. After that episode of whatever it was, I started noticing unusual events not only around me but in my own personality. I started seeing the rather cliché shadows in the corners of my vision, which I at first concluded were the result of whatever weirdness had afflicted me prior to that, and had caused some sort of degradation of my mental facilities. That, paired with my increasingly common mood swings, made me conclude that I was, in fact, batshit crazy. The next occurrence happened roughly a year later, and the event in the living room had finally been for the most part forgotten. I was at my father's house, almost asleep in my bed, with my pit bull at the foot of the bed, snoring louder than most people I know. As I'm laying there, I feel a severe tightness in my chest that is comparable to extreme anxiety. I feel eyes on me, but I don't know from where. My sleeping dog goes from completely asleep to hair up, teeth bared, and barking aggressively as she jumps off the bed toward my bedroom door. I turn my head, and I see a tall, dark shape shrouded in a black fog, but with no discernible features other than it being vaguely humanoid. It disappeared almost as soon as I looked at it, but the tightness in my chest remained. My dog and I searched the house, but I found no evidence of anyone having broken in, or that anyone had even been there. I didn't sleep that night. Fast forward about 6 months, and I'm in my backyard talking to my girlfriend, now ex, at 11 p.m. or so. She's aware of the weird shit that happened. It's a cloudy night, but really hot, Florida weather. And I noticed that the dark seems a little darker than it should be. There was a single shitty streetlight type thing mounted on the power pole in our backyard, and it seemed dimmer than normal. I begin to feel a tightness in my chest, and I feel that I know what I'm going to see. I did see a shadowy figure similar to the one I'd seen in my room, but as I looked closer, I saw that there were no less than 24 of them, all standing around me. They didn't move at first, but once they seemed to have realized that I saw them, they began moving towards me and then dissipated. I described the situation to my girlfriend and she just brushed it off and moved on. The odd part about that is that she had or has a deep interest in the paranormal and such. Over the next roughly 2 or 3 years up till now, my memory improved and the strange aggressive mood swings went away. These days, the shit that used to spook the shit out of me is pretty much commonplace. Banging on the walls, voices, the attic door lifting out of its frame, things flying off the walls, silverware flying across the room out of the kitchen, etc. There has only been one exception, and it was about a year ago now. I had since stopped sleeping in my room due to reoccurring happenings in it, and decided to sleep on the couch in the living room. It was about 11 p.m. again, suspicious. And my dad took the dog out into her part of the backyard to use the john, and I was attempting to go to sleep. He came in from the backyard and told me to grab a light and put on some shoes. I did so, and also grabbed my shotgun as well for added comfort. We own a total of 22 acres of land, the rear section of which is pretty swampy, and behind the whole area is dense pine and cypress woods for about half a mile. When we got outside, he informed me that he had seen a pair of large yellow eyes that were about 7 to 8 feet above the ground. He said that the eyes looked at him, turned, and disappeared. He waited to tell me to avoid scaring my stepmother, who only found out about this a few days ago. We went around back to see if we could either locate signs of the thing or kill it, and probably eat it. But there were no tracks, no fur, not even bent grass. We moved towards the rear of the pasture in a sweeping pattern about 50 feet apart. He checked out our barn, and I went to our pond, surrounded by a berm ranging from 5 to 15 feet high in places. I walked to the highest point and shined my light all around. I didn't see anything, but what I heard was what sounded like a pissed-off African bull elephant running through the woods behind our pasture. I didn't see what it was, but it was causing sizable trees to move, and I could hear large branches being broken at a rapid pace, moving away from me. I found no tracks in the woods behind us either. I'm not the only one who has seen things around here. My Filipino stepmother is a Catholic, but is also superstitious about things due to Filipino beliefs about things. Up until about 4 months ago, she thought I was completely fucked in the head, but then she say a shadowy figure moving from my room across the hall into my father's office room. My father has also heard and felt things in the house while he's been home alone, and been so freaked out that he almost left to go sleep next door at my grandparents' house. There have been at least a dozen more occurrences in the past that I haven't mentioned, as they appear to be separate events entirely.
I was given a DreamCatcher from a friend of mine. It was amongst the belongings of his recently passed-away grandmother. She lived a full life in the sticks of Wyoming, and because of her husband, was close to the local natives. Every trinket my friend came back with after her funeral had a story with it. A rattlesnake tail in a small vial, various rocks and crystals, a handmade blanket, and of course, the DreamCatcher. My friend had known about my odd late-night happenings, times where I'd wake up at off hours early in the morning in a panic, unable to breathe. I haven't had a dream in years, or I suppose I haven't remembered one since they say everyone dreams in REM state. Despite my doubts, I politely thanked him for the gift and hung it over my bed appropriately. My God, overfed and spoiled babies don't sleep this good. It was amazing. No night episodes, and I never needed my usual glass of wine before bed. I had gotten a townhouse recently, and during the transition, I had slept in an empty apartment. Most everything packed. All that was left was the bed, half of the couch, and an empty bookshelf. I had downed the last of a bottle of sangria, and it was time for bed. Holy hell, he'll never forget the eyes I saw in that dream. I don't recall the setting, but a very young lady was sitting relaxed in my dream. Her hair was very, very long, and she was very, very nude. Illegal feelings aside, she was quite pretty, but her eyes were not normal. Almost like a wolf or tiger, but very slanted and large. She had something in her hands that she was fiddling with. I don't remember. And while I can't recall any sound from the dream, I distinctly picked up on a chant of sorts she was humming. It was very simple and just looped. When her eyes met mine, I woke up immediately. Unlike my previous night episodes, I had normal breathing and it was past breakfast. I hummed it over and over during brunch. Sometime after settling into the new home my friend had visited, and we proceeded to smoke in my new and tiny backyard. I told him about my dream and hummed the chant. It looked like my buddy wanted to kind of cry, but he seemed too stunned. Allegedly, the DreamCatcher was given to his grandmother by a coyote, and the song as well. His grandmother hummed that same tune from time to time until her final rest. Family members visiting is always a pleasant encounter. I've had one of my dogs come say hi, as have my grandparents had their deceased Dane do the same thing. Usually I don't see them, but I know it's one of them due to a smell, or nothing more than a feeling. My mother has regular conversations with her father. Poor guy died at 40 from cancer. And every single time a family member dies, they visit at least one of us, whether it's the same night or a week earlier. It's kind of spooky, but it's nice to visit with the ones that aren't around anymore. While that dream is the most recent one in memory, I cannot be too sure I was visited by anyone. I've had many loved ones pass on, but none have ever visited me. If anything, their spirits are either content, or the subtle messages they left for the living went over my head. They're gone, and it saddens me when I feel that emptiness that everyone leaves behind. But I'm glad all those that are close to me had a good time while they were alive. My spooky experiences are quite tame, but for just having an actual dream for once, that one was pretty weird. Those eyes, man.
Okay, so weird shit has been happening to me for the last week. I'll start with last Sunday. Sunday is my day off, so after dinner with my family, I go home and make a cuppa and decide to spend the evening in bed, playing PS4 and lurking around online. After about an hour, I give up on the PS4 and watch some Netflix on the TV while I look for camping stuff online. Bang on the door, not a knock, like 4 solid heavy bangs like someone wanted to get my attention really badly. I wonder if someone is in trouble and dash out of bed to see what is going on. I get to the door in about 6 seconds, no one there. Usually I would hear the gate slam if someone runs off, but I assume that they could have hopped the fence. It is only about 4 feet high. I shrug it off and go back inside. I sit down and pick up my laptop. 4 huge bangs again on the front door. Can hear the door shaking in the frame. I bolt up and run to the door, make it in about 3 seconds. Small, 1-bedroom, ground floor flat. I throw it open, ready to scare some kid, no one there. I shut the door and grab the laptop, sit right next to the door, ready to open it as soon as someone knocks, nothing. After about 30 minutes, I get bored of waiting and assume they've moved on. I go to make more tea and think about ordering pizza. Just as I get back to my bedroom, the door shakes again. 4 bangs. It is like they knew I was not going to be at the door. I figure if I ignore them, they will go away. Less than 30 seconds later, 4 bangs on the door, and again, and again. I walk over to the door just as it starts shaking from the bangs again. I open it after the second bang. No one there, but there are 2 wet footprints on the rubber mat I have outside. The front door is covered by a little porch overhang thing. I freak out and leave the outside light on while I go back inside. This has been happening every day, at least twice a night, but last night it got worse. Last night was the first night with no banging. I've been round to my neighbors and they say they have not heard a thing over the last week. My street is pretty quiet too. Something like this would be noticed. I'm finally happy that I'm not being fucked with and can get on with my life. I go to bed around 2 a.m. and turn the lights off, ready to get some sleep. Like I said, I'm on the ground floor and my flat is pretty small. My bedroom faces the street, and while I have a big bed, I sleep right in the middle, facing the curtained window. I am just starting to drift off again. 4 bangs, just like before, spaced exactly the same. This time from the window about 2 feet in front of my face. Some street light leaks in around the curtains and I can see a shadow moving. Ignore it, anon, it is just some idiot trying to creep you out. Bang, 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 bang. I sit up and rip the curtain aside. For about half a second, I swear I see something disappear around the side of the house. I grab my crowbar and jump up, shove my shoes on, and go running outside to see who is screwing with me. I circle the whole house, activate my outside security lights. Nothing is there. I go back inside and lock the door. I hear a noise from my kitchen, something crashing to the floor. No one in there, but my drawer full of cutlery is now on the floor. I freak out and leave it. I check all the doors and windows and sit there with all the lights on. I finally fall asleep about 6:30 a.m. as it is getting light. I finish work in about 20 minutes, dreading going home.
I've got a story, well, a few stories. When I was just a little ankle biter at the age of 6, my little dysfunctional family moved from California to Kentucky. Me, my mom, and my older half-brother. It was the hardest thing I had to endure as a kid because not only did I not want to go, not only was my dad left behind with my dog, but recently at that time I had lost my little brother who might as well have been my twin. We were almost exactly 1 year apart in age, and what screwed up is, I'm the one who found him, at the bottom of a swimming pool. I think most of my encounters of the spirit kind have been because of such a traumatic experience, which I'll get to later. Dark things seem to be drawn to troubled people. So we make it to Kentucky after what seems like days traveling by bus. My uncle who lived in the area had dropped us off at this trailer stuck next to a pretty big patch of woods and a pretty wild-looking field. I just remember thinking, this is where we're going to live. We stay there for a while, getting used to things and getting over our grief. Me and my brother explored the place, warming up to it. We finally started getting comfortable with living there and going to school. It seemed to be getting kind of normal, even though I still remember a great sadness that loomed over us. One day, I'm laying in bed looking toward a window. There was a shelf thing at the headboard, and there was this horse figurine right in the middle. I don't remember what I was thinking or doing laying in bed during the day at that time, but suddenly I felt a small hand brush against the back of my head. I looked behind me, about to tell my older brother to stop it, but no one was there. I'm turning around in bed slowly at this point, looking out the open bedroom door and toward the hallway that led to the living room, trying to see whoever did it. And as I'm turning around, the horse drops and hits my shoulder. And that was my first memory of anything paranormal. We stayed there for a few months until my dad showed up. He was getting things settled in CA, and then we pretty much moved into this town nearby where I spent the rest of my childhood. Nothing much happened until we moved in that place. It was a very old house, built in the 1830s. The first encounters came on slow. Something falling here, a tiny knock there. I didn't really think it was that active until I turned 11. Then it just seemed to get more active and dark. I had constant dreams of dark things, like of hell and things chasing me. There was this predominant figure of a shadow man. Things started to get bad with my parents too. They'd always fight, and they were always stressed. I'd see things in the house, like a lady with a dress. Big orbs floating around them came in different colors: white, red, white, and black, blue. And there was always this dark mass in the corner of my bedroom that would move around the house. I constantly slept with a light on, even though it never helped. And I could never go in my parents' room unless I was with someone, because I think the man was attached to that room and partially mine, since my room used to be a hallway main entrance of the house. When I was 12, me, my dad, and my little brother, who was born in that town when I was 9, traveled to Oklahoma, where my older half-sister lived, as well as the rest of my dad's side of the family. Before I go on, I should make note that I had older siblings on my dad's side who were 18 years older than me. The older half-brother I mentioned is my mom's kid with her ex-husband. My dad is pretty much nearly 20 years older than my mom. I have 3 siblings from my dad's line. The oldest is P, then D, then M. And then there's B, my mom's kid. And then D and K, who are my full siblings. D is the one who passed away. Anyways, we visited my sister's house, P. My older brother M was staying there too. I spent a few nights on her couch, and I'll Greentext this part, sleeping on the couch. P walks in from work. I jolt up in the middle of sleep and yell something. M wakes up too. He is on the other couch. Little brother K is in another room, sound asleep. M tells P of a dream he had. M was pushing me and K forward as a shadow chases us in the dream. Suddenly, P's alarm clock or radio goes off. Just static, even though she had set it to a station. It was not digital and no alarms were set. It was also unplugged. Spooked. P walks in there to turn it off, comes back in. Something followed you here, Anon. A man, and I think he's a demon. We get back home after a few days visiting and things seem to get worse. Long story short, when my dad left to help P during a surgery, my mom drove K to school drunk. Then we went into foster care. Before I go on, I have another part to add, B13. Getting into aliens, astral projection, and various paranormal shit. Have a dream or episode. Floating above my bed. Everything is in detail in my room. Everything has bright colors. A shadow man is standing there. I'm not scared, just sad. I ask, why do you hate me? And then I wake up. Not too long after that, I'm put in foster care with my 2 brothers for 2 years. I have one more story. Sorry if everything's jumbled or if words are misspelled. I'm tapping away at my phone. Well, still a few more. May add an encounter at this graveyard when I was going to college. Anyways, this part is after foster care. Pretty much my dad moved out and bought a house in the country. Me and Kay lived with him while B was in college. Then when I graduated, I went to a college 40 minutes away. B20. Moved back at my mom's place. She still lives in old childhood house. Bring some friends over. S and C, we all watch TV, hang out. We went outside to make a fire in the pit outside. S says something is out there. We all walked over to this plot behind the house where another house stood. It was yellow and about as big. I have some experiences with this house before it was torn down. We walk over, then feel this pressure. S is like, we should go back inside. We ran in. We think we are safe, joking around and playing cards. After 30 minutes, S gets quiet. We carry on. We need to salt the doors and windows. He is outside. We run with it. I am kind of thinking at this point it is going too far. We get to the back door facing this plot. S says his grandma is out there taking care of it. Guardian spirit thing, I guess. We are all standing around in silence, feeling this energy, like there is a battle. It starts to calm down. I hear a woman's voice, S. It came from the door, like just outside on the steps, but sounded like it was right next to me as I was the closest to the door. Before I say anything, S says, she said, S, it is done. It was like everything left that night. No more sightings, no more sounds, nothing gets moved anymore. We had gotten used to the microwave closing and turning on by itself, but even that had stopped. And then eventually that house had been torn down as well. I have one last story, but it's about the yellow house. And then I will tell y'all what I think about everything on those 2 plots of land. My dad still owns the one. Dogs seem to go there to die. Every summer, Kay gas to clean up bones before mowing. So at the yellow house, I had some friends going up who would break into it with me as it was abandoned. It seemed like the people who lived there picked up the furniture and most of their stuff, but left pots and pans in the kitchen, tools and stuff in this workroom where we broke in, and pictures, puzzle sets, toys. I had this tortoiseshell cat named Crystal. My parents were idiots and didn't spay her, so she'd run off when she was in heat. I lost a lot of pets because we lived on the corner of two busy roads, so I was anxious to get her back inside. Be about 10. Follow the cat into the house behind ours. Climb through the broken window by the workroom. Follow her into this room that none of us never go in, mostly because it is pretty empty and uninteresting. She seems relaxed as I try to pick her up. All of a sudden, she gets agitated and aggressive, cuts the side of my wrist and bolts off. I am bleeding everywhere. Nope, back home to cry for daddy. Later on, I go back to clean up my blood, but it wasn't there. There was a pretty good-sized puddle when I was bleeding, and the carpet was white. No blood, not even a stain. The carpet around it still had pine needles, grass, and sticks. No one had cleaned it. No one even went to that house besides kids. I should note that before this, I had seen a man at that room's window a few times before. He always smiled at me, and I felt like he was a good spirit. Now I think it was all a ruse. Me and my friends were addicted to going inside that place, even though there was an empty house right next to us and another one down the block. All of them condemned, just like my old house and the yellow house. To me, I think that smiling guy was the dark spirit or demon that S and his grandma had dealt with. And it's possible that it was connected somehow to the shadow man who tormented my childhood. I also think I was weak and attracted those kinds of spirits, and that my whole block, if not the whole town, was affected by old spirits. Pretty much haven't had anything happen to me. There is this old bridge down the road from where my dad moved to, in the country. Me and my GF, now wife, had walked across the bridge to get to someone's house. At this point, neither of us had any occurrence with spirits for a while. I had stopped seeing them, but she could. I can still feel their emotions and energy, though. So she points by the bridge on the other side and says, "There's a girl there." I don't see or feel anything, so I walk across and suddenly it gets cold. And this was in late spring. I feel all of these emotions coming from her. The most predominant was sadness. So naturally I feel bad and try to connect to her to see if I can help. Bad idea. I get nothing from her, just this neediness. We walk back home to my dad's and go inside. Pretty much just normal stuff. Then I get this static feeling up my back and I automatically turn toward the window of the living room. "Hey, do you see anything?" I ask my her. I make it a point to not clue him in that I felt a presence by the window. She points to it and says, "There's a girl looking in the window. I think she's from the bridge." I'm spooked out. At this point, I was hoping I had that feeling for nothing, so we close the blinds and ignore her. I pretty much stopped trying to sense, see, or interact with spirits since then. Now we have kids, and I avoid that shit like AIDS. Saw a few spirits when I worked at this nursing home, but that's about it. Okay, I guess I'll add the graveyard story and then I'll be done. Hope my stories are interesting enough. There is this very old cemetery called Asbury Cemetery. Most markers had dates in the 1800s and such. I heard of it from both my dad and a few friends in college. Me and my wife went over there during the day and asked the owners if I could look at some of the graves. Apparently, I had family buried there. My dad's into genealogy. It was peaceful during the day, until my husband started to get nervous about a shadow man by an infant's grave. Then we left and he gathered up some friends. There were stories about this place and people wanted to get spooked. There was my car and a friend's truck. We all headed out at night. So we take my car and a friend's truck and head over there when it starts to get dark. Everyone else was excited and laughing and talking while I was sitting in the passenger seat pretty quiet. We make it there and suddenly there's a fog on what was a clear night. It starts getting thicker and everyone is spooked. The girl in the back gets so spooked we couldn't even make it down the road where the cemetery was located. We parked on the side while the truck kept going to the cemetery. Then we started to see shapes. I saw an old woman move toward the car and vanish. My friend said there was a hand imprint on her window, which we saw form before our eyes, and we heard talking outside of the car, and this was down the road. My friends in the truck later showed up driving back down the road. What they said happened to them seemed worse. One kid was touched, another was scratched, and the third one, other than the driver, had been pushed. All had heard whispering and movement. It was not a windy night. The driver of the truck did believe in ghosts, and he was the least scared of them. He said that he will never come back. He felt like there was a demon or malevolent spirit who probably protects the families around there. On the ride back, I kept seeing a dark shape of a person and a dog. The dog would run and disappear into the night. We were going the speed limit, which I think was 55. The person would be standing by a sign or a tree. Both I could only see out of the corner of my eye. They kept reappearing until we hit city limits, then we were left alone.
Back in 2011, I used to work at a Walmart overnight for some spare cash during college and had a few noteworthy spooks. I tossed them out in the order they occurred. Incident 1. Working in the back rooms. There is a long hallway with only one exit on both sides. I am working one day and glance at what looked like an older man at the opposite end of the hall. I wave and say, "Mornin'." The figure lifts his head to look at me, turns 90 degrees, and walks straight into and through the wall. Incident 2. I am still spooked and cannot walk to the other end of the hall without a feeling of extreme dread. It felt like that tension you get before seeing a screamer or something, and you just know it is going to happen. It did not help that I constantly felt like I was being watched. I start asking around, trying to find out if anyone else has seen anything odd. I get a lot of, "Holy shit, you have seen him too?" I ask this one older woman. She is a sweet lady, must have been in her mid-50s or 60s. She goes from her usual jovial, laughy mood to a deadpan, anon, do not talk to me about this ever again. She sounded genuinely pissed off. Incident 3. Working near the racks with cleaning products, bleach, detergent, Pine Sol, etc. I ask a coworker if she has ever seen anything unusual. We start chatting about what we have seen, then clap. A box of 4 detergent bottles placed on a shelf 12 feet off the ground lands exactly where I was just a second or two before. The boxes are always tucked in the back to prevent shit like this from happening, and I am sure I do not have to tell you how much 4 gallons of laundry detergent weighs. Pro tip: shit is not light. My coworker and I just kind of stare blankly at each other, then stop talking about it. Incident 4. I talked to one coworker, a guy who has worked there since the store opened a decade or so ago. I ask if anyone has ever died in the store. No, not that I can remember. Oh, thank Christ. Wait, no, there was this one dude, had a heart attack and kicked it in the back rooms in 2003. I asked him what he looked like, where he worked. Older dude, white, pretty tall, worked inventory over at the end of the hall. Later that night, while working in the negative 40-degree meat freezer, something fucked up with the door so I could not open it from the inside. Luckily, I had my phone on me and called someone to see if they could help. Dude opened the door like it was nothing, and to my knowledge, never had any issues getting stuck before or since. I stopped asking questions after that.
I am a man of the woods and whiskey. This is my shame I shall share with you. B43, living in a cabin outside of Portland, alone, smoking and drinking whiskey, living as God intended, browsing /B/late at night. Deciding /B/ is boring, I jump from board to board and finally end up on /X/ end of the road. Read through the many shit posts and succubus summoning threads. It is all succubus, listener, and tulpa threads. It is all shit. Get to the last post in the catalog before it 404'd. How to summon a succubus. /X/ you truly have a charm about you. Read the OP's text about how to summon a succubus. I am bored and have all the things listed, so why not? Take off all my clothes at 11:45 p.m. Overcast, very spoopy. Light the candles. I cry out into the heavens. Shaunda, why won't you come back? I feel Shaunda cannot hear me. I take my handsaw and cut open a perfect circle in my roof. It begins to rain. Shaunda, I have the power. Lightning cracks. Shaunda never came. I do not go on /X/ anymore.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.